Hey, friend, I feel like we need to talk. You and I need to have a little conversation. Is it possible that you might be forcing something in your life right now because you're afraid of what will happen if you let go? My name is Ambar Paloma, but you can also call me Amber, and you are listening to The Lighthouse Within. And y'all, I am so excited for this episode because I think a lot of us will find ourselves at a crossroads at different points in our life where we are questioning, am I forcing this or am I fighting for this? Ironically, this is also a major time when you will ask yourself something like, is this intuition or is this anxiety? A lot of us believe that if we stop pushing for something, we're giving up on our dreams. But what if I told you that not knowing when to walk away is also a form of settling? Today, we're talking about what it looks like when you're forcing something versus when you're fighting for something you believe in, and how to get into the flow of life instead. So, if you're ready, let's get into it. If this is your first time at the Lighthouse Within, welcome. I am so happy you decided to join me. We are on the ultimate voyage to resilience, aka, we are learning how to become people who bend but don't break and bounce back with their light and their joy intact. And y'all, thank you so much for your DMs on my last episode. I love hearing your feedback and knowing which topics have really struck a chord with you so that I know how to continue building a show that truly helps you. I love hearing from you guys, so please leave me a comment, a rating, or send me a DM if the episode resonates with you. After last episode, I was really stuck on the topic, and I felt like there was more to be said about trusting the process and letting go of control. And I think we have all found ourselves in a situation where we don't know if we're trying to force an outcome or if we're fighting for something we really believe in. And I think sometimes that line can get blurred because usually this happens with things we are very emotionally invested in. So it feels hard to decide to just walk away. This can be anything from a business you've already spent years on, a relationship you thought you had a future in, a career you've been dreaming of your whole life, or maybe even a milestone like having a baby. And something that is tricky about these moments is that the more we tie our identity into these outcomes, the more painful it is when we lose them or when we never get them. Because you're not just losing your dream, you're losing your identity. And the hardest part, the more tightly we grip onto an identity tied to a specific outcome, the harder it is to trust when things aren't going our way. Because if we let go and it never comes true, who am I without this? And this is kind of what happened to me after my last breakup. Recently on Threads, I shared a small story that I want to share with you today. So there I was, post breakup, in shambles on my couch, as one normally is post breakup. And I was so overwhelmed by all these horrible questions and what ifs. I was like, what if I end up alone for the rest of my life? What if my person doesn't even exist? What if I never get to be a mom? What if, what if, what if? And my mind was literally like, does anyone else talk to themselves? Because my mind was literally like, girl, and what if you never do? And I sat up like, excuse me? Like, you're supposed to be on my side here. But my mind was like, no, really, girl, what if the thing you want never happens? What are you going to do? Are you going to be miserable for the rest of your life? Your whole life is just going to be meaningless because you didn't get the thing you wanted? And I was so heartbroken. Okay, as I told you, in shambles on my couch. So naturally, I wanted to be like, yes, my whole life is going to be miserable until the day I die and nothing else will matter. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the truth. So instead, I said, no, I guess not. I'd be devastated, but I'll still find joy. I'll still find love. I'll still find ways to nurture others. And then I realized that the thing I was most afraid of wasn't actually losing out on love or never becoming a mom. It was believing that if those things never happened, I'd always feel incomplete. It made me realize that sometimes our biggest fears aren't about the outcome, they're about the meaning we attach to it, the story we tell ourselves, the feeling we think we'll never have if we don't get the outcome. We convince ourselves that if we don't find love, we'll always be incomplete. If we don't achieve our dreams, we'll feel like failures. And if life doesn't go as planned, I'll never be happy. But what if none of that is true? What if no matter what happens, you will always find ways to love, to give, and to create meaning? The truth is, we don't fear loss. We fear what we believe loss says about us. You know this. If you've been listening to this show long enough, you know that security doesn't come from guarantees. It comes from knowing that you will always find your way. Hear me now, okay? Security comes from knowing that you will always find your way. And this brings us to today's topic, because when I had that realization, it felt for me like it took off a lot of the pressure that I was putting on this outcome, because I was like, oh, so the worst case scenario is that I don't get what I want, but I still live a wonderful, fulfilling life full of meaning. Like, if I really thought about it beyond the stories that my ego and my fears were telling me, like the literal worst case scenario is that I still live a wonderful life. And for me, this relieved a lot of my anxiety, and I started moving very differently, because it's not that I don't still want those things. It's just that I don't have that anxious, frantic, empty feeling pushing me to force things, possibly with the wrong person, because I'm afraid I'll be unhappy for the rest of my life. In fact, this gave me a deep sense of calm that allowed me to embrace an abundance mindset around my goals. I stopped being like, I need to make this work, because if not, that's one less opportunity. And now I'm older. And what if I never get another chance? And instead, I felt so confident in who I already am and fulfilled with what I already have. I stopped putting off happiness for some future outcome that may or may not come, and started seeing the richness of my life in this moment. I started being more present and less anxious. Last year, I was reading this book called Don't Believe Everything You Think. Very apt title. And it's a great read if you're an overthinker. It's also a short book, probably took me about 3 hours to read, and it has all these great exercises at the end to help you overthink less. So I do recommend it. But listen, my man Joseph had a lot to say. Okay, so if you do read the book, please reach out to me, because we need to discuss the tea. He blew my mind in those 3 hours, but he talks about a lot of things, including the two sources of goals. He says that some goals are created out of inspiration, but other goals are created out of desperation. When goals are created out of desperation, we feel a large sense of scarcity and urgency. He says that these goals tend to feel heavy, like a burden. We may even feel daunted by the colossal tasks we've just committed ourselves to. They're likely to trigger our imposter syndrome and our self-doubt. And we always feel like we never have enough time for it. We go about our life frantically, desperately searching for answers and ways that we can accomplish our goal faster, always looking externally, never feeling enough or that we can ever get enough. Worst of all, he says, if we happen to accomplish this goal within a few hours or days afterwards, all of those same feelings of lack begin to resurface. He says that these goals that we make rooted in desperation, fear, or scarcity aren't actually about the goal. They're about something we want to feel. So we think achieving this goal will give us the feeling, but paradoxically, if we do end up achieving a goal created out of desperation, we end up feeling even more empty than we did before it, because we put in all this work and it didn't actually give us the feeling we wanted. So, he says, the next logical thing we tend to do is to set an even bigger goal out of even greater desperation to hopefully make us feel whole inside. But when we create goals out of inspiration, it is a completely different story. In this state, we're creating because we feel deeply moved, inspired, and expansive. It feels like a calling rather than an obligation. It is like there's a powerful force of life coming from within us, wanting to be expressed through us, to be made manifested into the physical world. So, I want to give you some examples of what that might look like or sound like because I think this juxtaposition really is foundational to asking yourself, am I forcing something or am I fighting for something? So let's look at some common goals. For example, you might say something like, I need to achieve something big so I'll feel like I matter. This is rooted in a sense of a lack of self-worth, right? But inspiration would say, I already matter. And I want to share my gifts with the world by pursuing this path and making an impact on others. This instead is purpose driven and it's not seeking approval. Desperation might say something like, I need to get married so my life can finally start and so that I don't feel lonely anymore. And this is rooted in this belief that happiness will only come after you reach a certain milestone. Inspiration would say, I want to build a loving partnership, but I'm already whole on my own. This is rooted in self-love, in attracting from confidence instead of seeking through lack. Another example, desperation might say, I have to lose weight so I can finally love myself. This is rooted in, again, that lack of self-worth of needing external validation. But inspiration says, I want to feel strong, healthy, and energized in my body. This is seeing health as self-care, as love, as expansion, not as punishment. Another key insight he gives us is that desperation versus inspiration is energetically very different. Goals and dreams created out of desperation tend to feel heavier, draining, confining, and empty. We tend to feel a lot of scarcity, fear, and stress, like we have to do it or that we are obligated to. With these types of goals, it seems like if we do not accomplish it, that there will be dire consequences, hence the high pressure and stakes. Like me thinking, I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life. So I think one of the ways we can know if we are forcing something or fighting for something is to ask ourselves, am I doing it out of desperation or out of inspiration? Is my goal rooted in fear, in lack, in scarcity, in my wounds? Or does it flow out of me from abundance? Let's dive deeper into what it looks like when we are forcing something, because I think that might make it more clear for you. So here are some red flags I want you to look for. The first one is chronic frustration and exhaustion. Y'all, I said chronic, okay? I did not say brief, temporary, occasional. I said chronic. Chronic frustration and exhaustion. You feel like you're running on empty, but you keep telling yourself to just push harder, to just keep going, just one more time. A second big sign is you're ignoring signs and intuition. Deep down, you just have this feeling like you know it's not working, but you don't want to accept it. We talked about this in the second episode, and you can go back and listen to that. But if you also want some additional help connecting to your intuition or working through some of these, like, is it anxiety or is it intuition kind of moments, there is a whole section on this in the Clarity Compass, which is the free PDF you can grab in the show notes to help you gain calm, clarity, and confidence during life's most uncertain moments. The third sign is that your well-being is suffering, okay? This thing is costing you mental, emotional, or physical health. Okay, we talked about this in the third episode. And again, there's a whole section on this in the Clarity Compass on your emotions as signals. But we talked about how if you are ignoring your intuition, it starts to manifest in your body. Okay, your body will start trying to send you signals through mental, emotional, and physical health issues. And there's a whole section in the Clarity Compass on emotions as signals that breaks down what it looks like when it manifests in your body and the signal that your body is trying to send you. The fourth red flag that I want you to look for is that you are shrinking yourself. You're compromising on your boundaries, your needs, your limits, maybe even the things you care about, like your values, your wants, your desires, and your other dreams, in order to hold on to what you have. The fifth red flag is that you feel stuck in a scarcity mindset. You believe this is your only chance and fear that letting go will mean losing everything. It sounds like saying things in your mind like, I have to make this happen. Why isn't it working? If I don't do something now, I'll fall behind. What if this never happens for me? I can't afford to fail. I just need to try harder. Maybe if I just push a little more, it will finally work. Other people are succeeding. Why not me? If I let go, I'll regret it forever. This has to work or I'll never be happy. I can't walk away. I've already put too much into this. Do you hear the anxiety? There is a power struggle here for control between you and life. And here is the biggest red flag that you are forcing something. If you were to let go, even just a little, does it all start to fall apart? Think of it like this. If you're driving up a steep hill and you're having to floor the gas pedal to get up the hill, barely holding on, what happens if you ease up even a little bit? Do you feel like you'll slide all the way back down? I know. It's a scary thought. Because if you've been forcing something, the idea of letting go can feel like losing everything you worked for. It can trigger that deep fear, that sense of lack, the scarcity, the one that made you hold on so tightly in the first place. But I need you to hear this. You don't have to keep pushing this hard. You don't have to drain yourself, shrink yourself, or exhaust yourself just to keep something alive. Because what's truly meant for you, it won't fall apart the moment you stop holding it together with everything you have. I know you're afraid that if you stop forcing, you'll lose everything. I also know that maybe you're afraid that by letting go, you're giving up on that person, on that career, on that dream. But what if letting go is the thing that finally sets you free? What if letting go is the thing that makes space in your life for everything that is meant for you? The things that will truly fulfill you, that will truly bring you peace, joy, and wholeness. Because here's the truth. You cannot build a house of peace and joy with bricks made from fear. You cannot create a feast of abundance with ingredients like desperation and scarcity. And you do not have to struggle your way into joy. I promise you, there's an easier, more aligned, more peaceful way forward. And it starts with trusting that letting go will set you free to find what is meant for you. And I also want to reassure you of this. Letting go of this path doesn't mean your dream won't come true. It doesn't mean you won't have the beautiful, fulfilling life you desire. What it does mean is that this particular path, the one that's leaving you drained, anxious, and running on empty, isn't the one that will lead you there. If continuing down this road is only pulling you deeper into fear, anxiety, and scarcity, then it's okay to turn around. It's not giving up. It's actually the most hope-filled decision you can make. It's choosing trust. It's choosing to believe that the right path, the one filled with ease, joy, and alignment, is still out there waiting for you. Your dream is still possible. Maybe it won't unfold exactly the way you imagined. Maybe it will take a different shape, happen at a different time, or come through an unexpected door. But if you stop forcing and start trusting, you might just find yourself on a path that feels lighter, freer, and so much more fulfilling. And I know when you're in the moment, facing the possibility of losing something you've invested so much time and energy into, that this can feel impossible to hear. These moments can feel like a punishment. I used to be at these crossroads asking myself, why me? But if you're open to it, isn't it beautiful that life won't let you go in the wrong direction? That it will literally drain everything out of you, not to punish you, but to warn you. That it will send you anxiety, exhaustion, frustration, and nonstop resistance to try to nudge you away from what isn't meant for you and guide you back to where you're supposed to be. And if you can entertain that, maybe even embrace it, you might just find yourself feeling grateful that the wrong path wasn't any easier. Because if it had been, you might have wasted even more time walking it. I want to share something personal that's been coming up for me a lot over the past year, and it's this recurring thought I've been having. I am ambitious and intelligent enough to know what I want and to go after it. And I am also humble enough to know that I don't know everything. So here is an extra special shout out to all the closed doors that led us back to the path where we belong. Let's look at what it looks like when we're fighting for something that's worth it. As you can imagine, this is coming out of inspiration. The emotion surrounding this is a sense of determination, of courage, and of perseverance. The energy feels focused, steady, and intentional. And here are some green flags that you could look for. The first one is that you feel challenged, but you're not destroyed. It's tough, but you're still growing and evolving through it. The second one is that there's progress, even if it's small. The results, maybe they're not instant, but you can see movement in the right direction. The third one is that your motivation is deep and purpose driven. You're doing this because it matters to you, not because of pressure. Doors may open slowly, but they're opening. You're seeing signs of alignment and opportunities as you move forward. The fifth one is that you can adjust without losing yourself. You're flexible and willing to learn, not forcing a single outcome. You're also not so attached to one path to achieving your goal because it's not ego driven. When we're doing it from a place of force, it's very ego driven because it's very driven by fear, by lack, by scarcity, by these stories that you tell yourself that you won't be enough if you don't accomplish it. This is very ego driven. But when you're fighting for something, this is coming from a different place. You're not tied to just accomplishing it through one path. You're open to the idea that this might not be the right path, but the path exists. I just have to find it. The sixth green flag I want you to look for is a deep sense of knowing. Despite the challenges, something inside tells you this is right. There's some deep inner peace and trust, even when it's difficult. And the seventh one is you can still take care of yourself in the process. This doesn't just mean in a self-care way, like, I don't know, a skincare routine, but it also means something like honoring your boundaries, your limits, your wants, your needs, and especially your values. Now let's look at the inner monologue. This sounds more like, this is hard, but I'm learning. I'm committed, but I'm also open to adapting. Progress is slow, but I'm moving forward. I know this is challenging, but I trust that growth takes time. I can figure this out. I'll take it one step at a time. It's okay if this takes longer than I expected. I'm building something meaningful. I don't need to rush. What's meant for me won't pass me by. Obstacles are part of the journey. I trust myself to keep going, even when it's tough. There's a confidence, a sense of calm, and an assuredness to this path. If you're feeling like, maybe I have been forcing some things, a good next step is to take a step back. Trust that anything that is meant for you will allow you room to reflect. I love going somewhere where there's nature or like sitting by water to have some reflection time. So, take some time to think like, what would be a peaceful place for me to reflect? Maybe that's alone in your room. Maybe you want to go to a park, by the beach, whatever. And this doesn't have to be like a major step back. I just want you to take some space to reflect and acknowledge that stepping back is not the same thing as giving up. This is about finding the right path forward. Stay open to pivots and to new paths because maybe the goal is right, but it's the method that needs adjusting. So get quiet and listen, whether it's through prayer, journaling, or self-reflection. And here are some questions I want you to sit with. What am I trying to force right now and why? What am I afraid will happen if I let go? If I knew everything was going to work out in the best way, how would I act differently? And where am I ignoring my intuition? Look for the path that comes with clarity and peace, prolonged. And I do mean prolonged, okay, not brief, but prolonged confusion is usually a sign that this is not the right path. The right path will make you feel more certain over time, not less certain or in a state of constant confusion. Okay? So, this is a big sign to look for. Continue paying attention to signs and patterns. Okay? Often life gives us clues. When we stop forcing, it will show us what the path is. Maybe the door keeps closing on a certain opportunity. Maybe you keep feeling nudged in a different direction. Getting quiet helps you notice these signs instead of struggling against them. So this is a good time if you're like in a state where you're like, I'm not sure what's next. I'm not sure what's next. This is a very important time to sit in daily either journaling, self-reflection, or prayer. Okay. This is very important. There's also a space to help you reflect and figure out the next right step for you in the Clarity Compass, the free PDF in the show notes. So go ahead and check that out. So, over the past year, I've actually moved into this third state, the flow state. And honestly, it has been life changing. And I don't think we have enough time to go deep into it today. So, I think I will save it for a future episode. But here's what I will say: flow happens when you work with life, not against it. It feels light, free, inspired, and present. You're energized by what you're doing. You're not overthinking. And even challenges feel exciting because you trust that you can figure them out. There's momentum. You're making progress without that frantic, desperate energy. And inner criticism, don't know her. Because when you're in flow, you know you're exactly where you're meant to be. Your inner monologue sounds more like this: I don't need to force what's already meant for me. I trust that what's for me will come in the right time. I feel at ease even when I don't know all the answers. I'm doing my part and I trust that the rest will unfold. I'm co-creating with life, not pushing against it. Things are falling into place even if I can't see the full picture yet. I am open to unexpected opportunities. I release control and allow things to flow naturally. I don't need to prove anything. I just need to show up as myself. Abundance is all around me. And let me tell you, I want everyone to experience flow. Because from the outside looking in, flow might even look effortless. Some might even say too easy. But here's the thing: when you're not wasting all your energy forcing things that aren't meant for you, you get to use that energy to build the things that are meant for you. And that will actually energize you instead of draining you. So remember, life should be mostly flow, with some fighting for what you believe, but forcing, we can leave that out. And if you want to experience more flow in your life, it starts by letting go of what you've been forcing and applying the trust we talked about last episode. So check that out if this is something you would like to dive into more. This would not be an episode of The Lighthouse Within without a final message. So if you're ready, please close your eyes, place your hand over your heart, and take a deep breath with me. Let the air fill your lungs and bring you fully into this moment. Feel your feet rooted beneath you and know that even in stillness, there is movement. Even in stillness, life is guiding you. Now, with your hand still over your heart, please receive this message. Dear friend, there is a gentler way to move through this life, one where you are not gripping, forcing, chasing, but where you are allowing, receiving, and flowing. There's no shame in releasing what no longer fits. There's no failure in choosing trust over control. What is meant for you will not require you to become someone you are not just to keep it. What is meant for you will not slip away the moment you stop holding on so tightly. You are allowed to loosen your grip. You are allowed to trust that if something is fading, it is making space for something better. You are allowed to believe that ease is not laziness, it is alignment. Let this be the moment you decide to trust life. Let this be the moment you surrender the heavy weight of making things happen and step into the flow of what is already unfolding for you. You are not falling behind. You are not losing time. You are moving exactly as you are meant to. And when you walk in flow, in trust, in faith, nothing that is truly yours can ever be lost. take one more deep breath in. Hold it and let it out slowly. When you're ready, please open your eyes. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that message brought you some clarity. I always love having these moments with you, and if this message spoke to you, don't forget to check out the Clarity Compass ebook for extra guidance, and make sure to subscribe so you always know what's coming next. And in the meantime, remember to give yourself room to soften, to trust, and to flow. Even when it doesn't feel like it, remember that life is always holding you, dear friend. Have a fantastic day.